Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight on the first Artist Talk of the season. My name is Maria Pio, and I am co-director at the Godwin-Ternbach Museum at Queens College, where I oversee administration and education programs such as this one. My co-director, Louise Weinberg, who curated the current exhibition, Migrations, the Study of Arts and Identity, is also joining us this evening, as is Stephanie Lee, our museum assistant. At this time, the exhibition is currently open to members of the Queens College community only, but you are able to check it out virtually via our website at www.gtmuseum.org. There you will also find information about upcoming program and events. Now, I want to take a moment to thank our donors and funders, including the Friends of the Godwin-Ternbach Museum, the Avery Arts Foundation, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, Museum Association of New York, Kupferberg Center for the Arts, and Queens College. Without their support, we would not be able to bring this programming to you all today. Lastly, given that we're all together in this virtual space, I just want to go over a few reminders for our virtual program this evening. Please remember to mute when you're not speaking. Again, this helps eliminate any of the background noises that we may have. You can use the chat function to submit any questions, comments throughout the presentation. Please remain courteous and respectful, and of course, hateful language of any kind will not be tolerated. Tonight, I am very excited to welcome Queens College professor, artist, and photographer, Stephen Harris. Harris' photographic experience ranges from stage performances to performance artists to photographing works of art. He has exhibited at Manna Contemporary Gallery in New Jersey, the Sideshow Gallery in Brooklyn, the New York State Museum in Albany, New York, Empire State College, and of course, Queens College. He has also produced work for artists such as Marina Abramovic, the video projects for the Sculptors Guild, and images produced for Sean Kelly New York Artist Books, and exhibitions at the Whitney Museum of American Art. It is my pleasure to introduce to you all Stephen Harris.
Hey, everybody. So I'm just trying to get used to this interface here, and I think I've got it. Good. Let's see if this works. So it's great to be invited to share some images and a talk with you guys at the Godwin-Ternbach Museum. And I really want to thank Maria, especially for all the help that she's given me to help put this together, as well as a few other people who were critical in getting me some of the gigs and helping me organize this work and producing and showing this work. Let's see if I can make this work now. There we go. So this first series of images I want to show just has to do with some work that I did for the Queens College theater department. This was a play that they put on in the Rathaus Theater, and they did this back in 2018. And Professor Greco asked me to help them out and do some shooting, which I was happy to do. And they did an amazing job creating a series of images, or doing a play that I shot a series of images for. That had to do with this D&D relationship that the two sisters had. One died and the other one re-experienced a relationship with her through the virtual world, which I thought was really brilliant. A lot of archetypes were dealt with here. Some just really fascinating storyline, and some great acting was done. And so I got some images of these guys. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I thought that it was worth noting because they were so good. So they built sets, and they created all of the props and everything that they needed. It was a really amazing production, I thought. A lot of action, and a lot of demons. And so, of course, working on the stage setting, like for example here, the lighting would change radically. I even was able to ask them to adjust the lighting somewhat for me so that I had some better lit areas, but they used a lot of very low lighting for this because of the dramatic shift from the sort of normal everyday views that they did, where they were talking more normally, and then went into the D&D world and the fantasy world and shifted the lighting. And so, like, for example, here you see a lot of movement. I shot this with a digital DSLR camera, no flash, no additional lighting from the camera, and just had to kind of wing it. I got, a pretty good spot in the front of the space. It was an event that they had an audience for, a small audience for back then, and a lot of action. And then, of course, at the end of a production like this, you can't forget to do the group shot. So that was everybody there. And I'm terrible with names right now, especially with things that happened pre-pandemic. So I'll move along. I did another piece for a client whose daughter was in a dance program at the Frank Sinatra School of the Arts. It was high school. And it's really Tony Bennett's, connection, I think. And he has had a lot to do with setting this school up and funding it, named it after his buddy Frank. And so these are stills that I did. And as you can see, there's a lot of motion, a lot of movement, still using a digital camera, but lighting was very low, even with a very high res, fairly modern digital camera. This was a few years ago. So, now, of course, your technology and your sensitivity on your sensors has gone way up. So a lot less problems with that now with the more modern equipment, but every day this equipment gets better. And so it's really incredible and difficult to keep up with. These were still frames taken from the video. And I just want to go quickly through this, show you that I was moving around a little bit in the audience, trying not to be too intrusive. You had to try to be quiet, setting the cameras to soft shutter sound, being very careful about the noise that you made because it was all being recorded, of course. And I was doing video, which was also being recorded. And so I wanted a clean soundtrack if I could, directly off of the mic that I had plugged into my camera. This was all shot with a 2-camera DSLR setup. So I had one as a lock off in the back of the room, and I had another camera set up. Let's see if I can get back now to my other, yeah, it's not letting me do it. Hold on a second. So then this is another piece that I did that was done by an artist by the name of David Rowan. And he was a fantastic performance artist and also does some amazing 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional work. And this piece was called Contact Walt Whitman. And he did this piece in particular at the Scope Art Fair a few years ago. I'm not even sure exactly when. And he dressed himself up as Walt Whitman and then did a piece interacting with people at the Scope Fair in the entrance to the building where he was, where the fair was being held. I think it was on the west side of Manhattan. And what he did was he built this container with these eyes, little eyeball viewing lenses that you could see through. And then he also had an intercom system on the outside so you could pick up and call him. And one of the things that he did was he would pick up the phone, in this antique looking phone, and then through the intercom system, he would talk to you. And one of the things that he did was he would read to you from Walt Whitman's work. And what was really wonderful about that was just the fact that he could really, immerse himself in this character. He was really acting the part of Walt Whitman and carefully interfacing with the public through this strange contraption that he was sitting in, which was a box about 10 feet by about 6 or 8 feet wide. I think it was less, I think it was around 6 feet. And so this was a really fascinating work that he did, and I got to shoot that. And, I hesitate to try to now, oh, here we go. Maybe I can do it this way and then go back, and yeah, maybe this will work. And I'll just show you a second of what that piece looked like. There's always a window in my way. Hold on one second. Back to home. Here it is. Let's see if this will play. This was called Contact Walt Whitman. So I'm shooting basically with an iPhone here, but I'm using one of the little lenses that he mounted in the container.
Calling Walt Whitman. Calling Walt Whitman.
You may not be able to hear it that well.
I was offering to feed my soul. Clear to me now is that that's not yet published. Clear to me in my soul that the soul of the man I speak for rejoices in comrades. Here by myself, away from the clank of the world.
Yeah, and so that was that piece. Let's see if I can come back now. Bingo. Okay, now it's working. So that was really wonderful. Clear to me now as he reads, you know, my soul is in totally engaged in comrades. And so, I really love the way, I'm paraphrasing, but I really love the way that he selected certain very specific parts of the book to read from and how he really engaged with people. So that was that piece. This next piece is Ursula von Riedingsvard's piece. Now, she's basically a sculptor. Her work is mostly this large scale monumental sculptures, a lot of it from wood. She cuts and assembles the pieces, does a lot of patina work on them. Some of them are raw, but most of the pieces that she's made, if you've seen her work, have this beautiful abstract quality to them. They're very organic. And she also did a piece where she involved a performance piece that was done here by this artist that she knew, and I'm drawing a blank on Lisa's last name, but Lisa Knitting was what I had down for this. This was so many years ago that we were actually not able to find it on the internet or anywhere that was recorded by Ursula. So I would actually have to call Ursula to find out more information about this. So I shot this piece on 4x5. It was shot on film. She did this piece, the knitted material, the material that Lisa is knitting was actually intestine from either a cow's or pig's intestine. And so it was a pretty raw experience to photograph that piece because it had been sitting in plastic for a while. I think one of the reasons that Ursula wanted to document it was so that she could safely dispose of it, which good. But there was also something about the piece where the artist who was performing it needed to or was supposed to engage with the people coming into the gallery and watching her knit this piece. And she's literally knitting these strands of organic intestine, I think, while she's talking and interacting with people. So this was done on 4x5, scanned on drum scanner. Then I toned the images for Ursula and I printed them for her. The next piece is another piece that I did at the Sean Kelly Gallery. And this one was a piece that Ann Hamilton produced right after 9/11, actually. This was done in, I think, the end of October, right about now, in 2001. And this piece has a really incredible subtlety to it. It was very beautifully done in the way that she engaged the aspects of silence, the words on the paper that then connect to our speech and to our breath. And so she was reading some abstract thoughts that she had written, and she is very much a poet and a performance person herself, and has done a lot of installation work. And so as they were sitting and speaking, Mary Kelly, who is here on the left, was using a little hand gadget to click off and control some sound and some of the paper, which was being dropped by machines at the top. And Anne was reading from her notes. So this was a really beautiful, very subtle piece. As you can imagine, she's done this piece, I think, also in Europe, and the room fills with paper after a certain period of time. She doesn't sit the whole time, though. She did these she did this piece special for the gallery for the opening. And here you see someone having to help adjust and control the equipment that they were using. But there was a lot of movement happening. I used artificial lighting to capture the falling paper so that there would be something more than just a blur. This was shot on 6x7 film. So this was an RZ Pro 6x7 camera that I shot with on tripod, and then used artificial lighting to go after the paper that was falling. And then I moved quickly now to Marina Abramovic, who did, I didn't put her name on here, but she did The House with the Ocean View. And so I'll just read like a tiny little blurb about that. The House with the Ocean View. So the House with the Ocean View, which the artist describes as most important one of her career to date, a sculpture the public can use, and a new video installation that they did also at the same time, I think. The House with the Ocean View is a public living installation. For the first 12 days of the exhibition, Abramovic will fast following a strictly defined regime in 3 specifically constructed living units in the main gallery space. For this unique and challenging performance, the gallery will have special hours to facilitate repeated attendance by the public. And so, Abramovic, who was born in '46 in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, which at the time was Yugoslavia, is one of the seminal performance artists of our time. And, she's received a lot of accolades, of course, as we know. The only thing that I wanted to read additionally from this before I just show the work is to read a little bit of her writing. Dear artists and dear friends, dear public, I hope I didn't disappoint you because I didn't come off the knife ladder down, because I am not there yet, and I hope one day I will. House with the Ocean View performance is ended. In the 30 years of my career, I've never made a speech about performing, after performing, but this time I really need so. I try to explore a completely new way of performing that I never done before. This performance is entirely dependent on the audience. With no audience, performance can't be done. I put myself in the position of complete vulnerability, openness, and absolutely available to you at any time and condition. I also went through the fasting, as you know, 12 days of the water. This is not because of political reasons or to achieve some kind of rights. This was done for the reason to heighten my sensitivity so that I really can be you and I can really see you at any particular time. These 3 units are made to look like tableaux vivants with the sculptural elements, and at the same time, as you know, there is no place to hide. And I've done all my daily activities as much I can. In the shower, sleeping, sitting, standing, and always watching. The energy I got from you on a deeper level changed my life. And she goes on. So some of this work, and of course she's writing as she speaks, her broken dialect of English, which is of course really endearing. These were done on black and white film with a small handheld camera, and I'll show that to you in a bit. I'll go through these slides since I'm struggling so much with the various interface here. But this group was different. This was done with a handheld 1950s 2¼ camera, but this was shot with the 6x7 RZ, very similar to the professional studio cameras that everyone shot with in any commercial or advertising studio, and especially for portrait work and magazine work because of the format. So this was a kind of prearranged setup where the gallery, before the gallery had visitors from the public come, we came in and shot Marina. And I think this was near the end of the 12 days that she did. So she was, looking a little tired here, and understandably so, sleeping on a wooden bench, drinking only water, and having no one to talk to for 12 days. Definitely was a little bit of a test for her, I would say. Physically, I do not know how she did it. And here she is, preparing for her shower, and then getting ready, putting her hair up, and then during her shower. So these were pieces that the gallery asked me to do, and that were done with the existing lighting, but we basically prearranged before the 12 days that one day I would come in and she would do her walkthrough of the space. And then this is with the audience. This is Marina showering in the middle of the afternoon, probably on a weekend, with everybody there. And it was pretty incredible. She was, of course, happy to do it, I think. She was very much interested in just being there with everyone and doing her thing. And here we are with, they even set up a little step platform with a spotting scope so that you could get very detailed on Marina. Some people came and actually tried to challenge Marina, which she took on quite happily. They even tried to have some fun with her. There were boundaries in the space, but as you could see, she was, in fact, there. And if anybody had tried to climb up and get to her, they would have been able to, just not on the ladders with the knives. Those are some very serious knives. And so other people had a much more, I would say, channeling kind of experience, where they realized that they were connecting with her and kind of mimicked some of the behavior that she was showing and tried to really channel their energy with her. I think this was a really important thing for New Yorkers, that, a year, this was 2002 and in November. And so just over a year after the 9/11 event, people came and wanted this community experience with Marina and with New Yorkers who I think had a sense of loss still. And so she was really working to channel with a lot of people, and I think she accomplished that. I think this was probably from all the work that I've seen and helped be part of and document, I think this was a pretty special piece. Here's the end of the event, and you can see that everybody stood. And here she is as she came down and greeted her public. And then we go quickly to 7 Easy Pieces, which was the event at the Guggenheim Museum in November 2005. And this group of images was very different. She put together 7 days of performance, and did, I think, from about 4 o'clock in the afternoon until about 10 o'clock at night. She performed each of these events, and those events were from the start, beginning with this one. She redid the Bruce Nauman piece called Body Pressure from 1974, and that was where Nauman constructed a false wall nearly identical in size to an existing wall behind it. A pink poster with black typeface invited visitors to perform their own actions by pressing against the wall. So of course they didn't quite do that same exact thing for this, but what Marina did instead is she duplicated some of the same experiences, but with a glass wall, and more of a performance piece with just her rather than involving any public, which of course they couldn't do. But she was walking into the glass and going around this piece and doing her kind of channeling with the audience again. But she was really getting very, very physical with the sheet of glass and leaving a lot of her own personal experiences behind, right on the glass. The next piece was a piece that Vito Acconci did many years ago called Seedbed. He did this at the Sonnabend Gallery in New York. And Acconci built this platform, or had a platform built, or a false floor, they referred to it as. And then he crawled under this platform, this basically a ramp, I believe it was. And he had a microphone and had that piped out from underneath the space where he crawled. And he stayed in there masturbating for, I'm not sure, I think it was probably several days that he came and went during the gallery hours. And he referred to it as an intimate connection with them. He was an attempt to establish an intimate connection with the gallery viewers, gallery visitors. And so Marina built a much more elaborate platform, had people come and actually stand on top of it. And then she piped the sound of her underneath, experiencing intimate relationships with herself. The next piece is a very famous piece that was done by Valerie Export. This one was called Action Pants. And this one got a little bit more exciting because it definitely drew some more, shall we say, it drew some more intention to it, and people were much more interested in interacting with her on this one. I think that the weapon was real, not armed, and it goes back to the she's redoing this piece that Valerie Export did, where she went into a porn theater and kind of interrupted a cinema screening with the spectators, and it was a little bit different than what Marina did here, quite a bit different, I think. And so there was some criticism about some of these pieces that were redone in the way that Marina did them, and of course these were redesigned and redone by Marina. And so that drew some fire from the old guard of the art world and the performance people who were part of this art scene. But she basically, hung out with this weapon and her pants and special pants design, a little bit like what Valerie Export did, and it's Valley Export, sorry, and she's she I think started a whole new fad in pants with holes cut in them. So then we go on. Here's the one shot that I got where one of the visitors tried to climb the stage during this piece, and of course she was unfazed by it, got up out of her chair with her gun ready, and knew where he was headed through the circular door shortly after. This piece was a self-portrait, and that was done originally also by an artist by the name of Gina Payne. And Gina Payne did a piece where she laid on a bed with a metal bed with candles, and made incisions with a razor blade in their skin around her fingernails and lips, while slides of women painting their nails were projected on the wall. Marina did something a little bit different. She laid on the bed, and which was, not that far off from those candles. I mean, I don't think that she got any kind of burns from this, but I know that it had to have been hot. So this was a pretty intense piece, and then she would hang out there for long periods. The piece also had milk and blood involved in it, and So I'm not sure that, I don't think Marina did anything with razor blades and knives for that piece. So Joseph Beuys is this piece, this was actually one of my favorites. It was a really remarkable piece. Again, I'm shooting here with medium format 6x7 in this case. These were all done with the existing lighting. This is back to working with my Hasselblad. This is back to working with my 6x7. And I did a lot of color. And you can see that there's also black and white here that's toned. I actually shot black and white negative film that was in processed by a special process to reverse it out so that it became a transparency. There's a film that I was using in a process that I was using that reversed out black and white negative film. And it was really incredible quality. I could shoot it at 800 or 1600 ISO and get incredibly fine grain and incredibly beautiful quality out of it. So in hindsight, I think I probably would have shot everything in color, you know, because it's so easy now to move things into black and white. But there was something really unique and special about this. And also I was in an environment where I really had to try to be, you know, unobtrusive and not interact with making noise and moving around too much and making a scene. Here's another one from the black and white film that was reversed out. This piece is the next piece, and this piece is, by the way, and that Joseph Beuys piece was called How to Explain Pictures to a Dead Hare. He did that in 1965 in Dusseldorf, and he covered his head in honey and gold leaf. Beuys cradled a dead rabbit, showing it pictures on the wall and whispering to it. He wore an iron sole on his right foot and a felt sole on his left. And of course, there's a whole story behind Beuys and his performance pieces that Marina, I think, really respected. And she spent a lot of time working on this set and working on the presentation. She did have a expired hair flown in from, I think, Wyoming or Montana. And that was, I think, probably very odoriferous and not the most pleasant hair to speak to. This piece was How to Explain, this piece is Lips of Thomas, 1975. And this was Marina's piece. So Marina Abramovic did this piece in 1975. She ate a kilogram of honey, drank a liter of red wine out of a glass, which she did fairly quickly, but over the course of some time. She didn't drink the wine down like she drank the honey, but she did drink it. And she broke the glass with her hand, incised a star in her stomach with a razor blade, and then whipped herself until she no longer felt pain with a kind of leather flogging device, which was rather intense and pretty shocking to see. And the initial strikes and screams that she created stunned both me and her audience. Not quite sure if I could sit through another performance of Lips of Thomas. That was a pretty intense one. And then at the end of her performance, here she's doing the next stage of it after she cut the star into her stomach with a razor blade, after she's drank wine and had honey. And I think she has the honey right after this particular piece. And so she's lying on an ice cross with her skin being basically frozen on one side, and then a heating unit roasting her on the other side from above. So another extreme torturous part of this Lips of Thomas piece, which again, I'm not sure I could sit through it if she did this ever again. And then of course at the end, she's proudly presenting herself. She's wearing these military boots and this cap that had, I think, nationalistic significance to her from her homeland. And there was a song she had, which I think she also sang, if I remember correctly now, some time ago. And it was a whole it was a very personal piece, kind of connecting to her homeland. And if I remember correctly, she had two very intense parents, one who was connected to the Yugoslavian political bureaucracy. He was part of the government, and her other parent was an activist and very much part of the underground and anti-government. So a very intense upbringing, I would imagine she experienced, and that may have been where a lot of the design from this particular piece came from. And then last but not least was the piece that she did where she designed an entire dress and then interacted with the public with that in a kind of very almost like, you know, it had a very like Alice in Wonderland kind of quality to it. She just channeled with people for the whole time. It was a very tall dress. I think there was a 20-foot ladder up underneath the dress, an 18 to 20-foot ladder that she had to climb. And then she got into this dress, and then she interacted throughout the evening with people, just sharing and channeling with them. And this was also shot with 6x7, and I also did 6x6 images of this. Everything that I was doing, I was either doing with my Hasselblad or with an RZ Pro and a Mamiya RZ Pro. And I shot all of this on film and did both the black and white special reverse process with making slide film out of black and white negative film, and then the regular color film that you see here. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go back to, let me just get out of the screen share here for a second, and maybe that will help me be able to field any questions now.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. That was great. That was wonderful.
Sorry about that
Yeah.
technical glitch. I hadn't seen that pop up before.
No worries. Thank you. Stephen, I know, let's see if we have, I encourage anyone to have any, if you have any questions, feel free to just put them in the chat. I will be happy to read those to Stephen, or we can continue the conversation. But I did want to ask you, Stephen, I know in our previous conversations you had a couple of your cameras that you showed me. Would you want to show us those now?
So some of the questions, from people may be related to, what was I thinking about when I was working? I mean, Maria was asking me about, what it was like to really interact with artists and the productions. And most cases, they really had to do with relationships that I had with the people who were producing these events, and then they would put me together with the artist. And if that worked well, then I would get invited to come and do the shoots. They were very, very, delicate conversations to have, obviously, about how you would be part of an event, especially when someone is doing a performance like Marina does, and how you would photograph that and in what way, and how you would be connected to it in terms of any involvement. Where would you be? How much noise are you going to make with your camera equipment? All those kinds of things were major considerations before you would go into shooting one. And here is one of the cameras. If you can see this, here's one of the cameras that I used, which is a 1950s rangefinder that is just absolutely a gem. And because it's a rangefinder, it doesn't have the noise from the shutter going up and down. And you basically shoot the same professional 120 film with it. And it has this gigantic, super sharp, incredibly razor sharp Zeiss lens on it. So that had a lot to do with some of my decisions. Was it's quiet, barely makes any noise. Was a rangefinder camera that was small. I could fold it and put it in my pocket, and then pull out. I could shoot this roll and then pull out, this guy and shoot with the Hasselblad. And the Hasselblad, of course, was a little noisier and a little more intrusive, but it was also giving me the quality that you get from shooting with a Hasselblad and that nice big frame. I also did the one picture that I did of the, well, that I showed tonight of Marina in the dress, I did on 4x5. So I also brought my large format 4x5 camera, which I had in my backpack. It was small enough in a folding unit that I was able to shoot 4x5 plates and photograph part of the event for Marina on large format, which really gave me some incredible quality.
Great, thank you. There's a question on the chat from Gina Minelli. How often did you visit and shoot the performance?
Oh, that's a good one. So House with the Ocean View, I didn't go every day of the 12 days, but I went several days. And, we also had a prearranged times on at least one occasion. But when I went to the Guggenheim event, I shot, I think probably around 50 or 60 rolls of film. I probably shot somewhere between 10 and 12 rolls of film every night for 7 days. I went for the entire time, and I would show up in the evening around 4 or 5 o'clock and then stay until 10 and shoot the entire time. So I shot 7 days straight and basically just came home and crashed, and then the next day get up and go back and do it again. And so it was a really intense shoot. I documented every square inch of that event at the Guggenheim. And we got some of the work published in books that Marina did. Some of the work was published for prints, and there were magazine. I did a cover for the Art in America, took one of the images from the House with the Ocean View and did a cover for that. That was back early 2000s. And then there were several pieces that were asked for and used from the Guggenheim piece. They came out so well. I mean, it was just one of the best events I'd ever covered. And then somebody was asking about the positivity to the artist. And that was really critical. That's a very good question too.
Yeah, I just want to read it. The question says, did you need to relate positively to the artist? So was your reaction to their art influenced by the fact that you were photographing it?
Yeah, I mean, back in the old days, photographers, like say for special events, you name it, family events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, a lot of what you would see occurring for events and events that I was working on, where I would come in and be maybe like a second shooter early on when I was young. A lot of the events were actually run by the photographer. Like the photographer would say, okay, now we're going to go do this and I'm going to shoot this. And he basically would choreograph the whole event. Not happening with these type of events. You really have to have a careful consideration and a very, you have to really be a listener to be able to work with artists in these events, because they have criteria and they have priorities that are not yours. And you may have all these technical things you want to do. You may want to involve yourself with lighting, and you may want to involve yourself with flash and other types of artificial light to enhance the ability for you to capture it. But that's not something that you really usually get to, to involve and to add, because that's going to impact the production of the event, and it's not your event. So in some ways you're kind of the fly on the wall if you're really good at this, and you really have to be in the background, quiet as you can, and document it and compositionally as best you can without being in anybody's real face. And also you have to be careful about not being in other people's way who are trying to be viewers or watching it. Not to mention the fact that there are other documentations happening, like video cameras and other still photographers that are working often in these events.
Thank you. There's actually, I have two questions here relating to what impacts your decision or influences your decision to capture photos either in black and white or color.
Yeah, that was a good question. I mean, I was so enamored with, just absolutely infatuated with this black and white film that I had discovered. The film was standard. It was HP5. It was Tri-X, it was a Plus X, it was any of the standard films that, FP4, any of the standard films that were on the market at the time, and still are actually, and I still use. But there was a process that I was getting from a company called DR5, and the guy, David Wood, and this reversal process has been known for many, many, many years, but he had perfected it and really polished it up to such a level that the quality of your film and the grain structure of the film was extremely fine. A lot of technical conversations to have about developing film with very special fine grain developers, but he had this killer one. And so I was really, really just totally in love with that process. And that's part of the reason why it gave me speed. It let me shoot at higher speeds, at higher shutter speeds. It gave me higher apertures, better quality. And of course, in hindsight, I mentioned before, I would have shot the Guggenheim piece. I would have shot all in color if I were to do it again. But that black and white film was amazing. So in terms of choosing between one, I'd shoot everything in color now.
Okay, thank you. There is a question from Sharnam. Has there ever been a shoot where you didn't want to continue taking photographs? Which is a great question.
The Guggenheim.
Yeah.
I mean, after 6 days of going to the Guggenheim and shooting, pretty much nonstop for hours and hours, I was pretty done. I was like, really, do I have to go back? And I had to go back because I had invested all of the rest of the time into it. So I couldn't leave the last, performance out. And each day was so different. And the Guggenheim was actually absolutely like fascinating because, this was, everybody was welcome. And, some people got shown the front door very carefully by some very large people who wore suits and had walkie-talkies. And so, this was a completely open, completely public event. And it was really, really interesting to see, the whole dynamic from elite, famous people who would come to visit the Guggenheim and see a marina to people on the street who thought that they, could have their day, their 15 minutes of fame.
Right. Oh my goodness. That's incredible. Question. So with your stage performances, do you generally get any sort of information beforehand as far as the scenes that will take place, the sort of the lighting that will be used so that you get to prepare in that way?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, this is a critical thing. And it's an important thing for people to think about if they want to try to begin photographing any kind of events where there is, it's really about your communication with the people who are doing the performance, whether it's music, whether it's an event that's even just a simple, get together for a family event, or, something like Abramovic, where it's a stage show or a theatrical show. You really do have to speak to them, ask what they're willing to let you do in terms of where your camera positions and where your camera angles are. You need to figure out where your good camera angles are, make sure that you can go to those spots, figure out ahead of time. And you need to know a lot of the the layout in terms of where things are going to be placed. But you also need to, and I did do this for most of these events, you need to know a little bit about what's going to happen, right? You actually need to have like a little heads up about, how the event's going to unfold so that you can move from place to place. Part of the reason why I wanted to show the little piece of the video of the dance work from the Frank Sinatra High School was that, I had carefully planned out my positions for that, and it worked out pretty well. I was able to follow the front view of the right angle for the performers and capture them, at a fairly close proximity to the stage. So you really do have to have things thought out. You need to know what the event is going to be and where it's going to happen, and you need to have some choreography beforehand. You need to know a little bit about where they're going to be on the stage, what they're going to do, and who you really need to capture, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine there's so much to take into consideration when approaching this. So,
And the last thing I would say about that is you have to reset yourself and become an incredibly good listener. You have to really say, oh, I'm listening, and make sure you are.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that segues into our next question by John. Says, I'm curious about your artistic approach. How do you interpret the art in a way that you can add your own vision? Or do you have a point of view that's evident?
Right. Excellent question. So in terms of an artistic approach, I mean, most of the time you're dealing with the basics of the framing, of the composition, and trying to incorporate elements that make a good photograph. The grammar of photography, right? Your point of focus, where you're placing your focus, what is on the edges of your frame, the critical aspect where we don't always look. When you become a really, and I'm still learning, but when you become a really good photographer, it is all about the frame and the edges of the frame, because that in the end is what makes the good composition. The decisive moment, comes in, Cartier-Bresson, you have that moment where you have to be prepared. The prepared artist or the prepared mind, is always going to benefit, for those important moments. And so you have to be ready with your gear. You have to have your idea down about how you're going to set your lens, set your shutter, set your camera, so that you don't have to think about these things. You shoot and shoot and shoot for years and years and years, and slowly you realize that, oh, I'm not even thinking about that anymore, because it's an automatic function now. It's moved into the lower level of your thinking process, because it's now semi-auto. You just do it. And so in terms of the artistic approach, when it comes down to trying to work with artists and trying to work with events and trying to document these events, you really have to think about, how are you doing this? Is it something you're doing for yourself and you have an idea about the way that you want the work to look or to be visualized and then composed? Or is this really about you working with the artist on the stage or the musicians or whatever? And is this really about you simply doing a straight, more direct documentation? And so that's really where it's about. Is this something where you're trying to throw in an expression or an idea of your own, or is this something where you're staying out of any kind of influence on the way that the work looks, and you're just doing straight photography, as straight as it can be? And of course, almost all of these pieces that I just showed were about doing it as a straight shoot.
Yeah. All right. So just we are just at time, but we do have a couple more questions. So I want to continue. I want to have a moment for you to take these questions. So, okay, there's a question here from Aisa. It says, I'm curious to know if you completely worked alone, or do you have any assistance from shooting the films to developing them? It's lots of work, especially with that many roles.
Yeah. I mean, having an assistant is really amazing. If someone can reload your camera. Now I work with a DSLR camera, so I definitely work alone now. And having a DSLR camera, of course, as long as your batteries are charged and you've got cards, you're good to go. I have done shoots in the past where I was the assistant or I was shooting and had someone loading camera film reels, film holders for me. And so that's always an incredible, pleasure to have that. But mostly, most of this work I've done alone. It is nice to have somebody with you, but let's not forget that none of these shots were really done without a lot of assistance from a lot of people to get me into a place where I could do that work and successfully do it. Yeah. That was a good question.
It was. And we have one more question from Christina. How do you decide what angle to shoot from and what makes a good angle?
Yeah, and that goes back to the original comment that I made about, how you really have to pre-plan and think out like how these stages and these events and these locations are going to be. I haven't done it yet, and I didn't really do it for this presentation. I put a lot of slides together for this presentation, but after I got about 50 or 60 images and loaded onto the presentation, I just didn't have time to really go back and do any real graphic control over them. But let's see if I can do this really quick. Hold on one second. Yeah, let me do that. I'm going to share again and go back to the pictures.
We also have a question that may go hand in hand with this as well.
Yeah,
from
so,
Rose.
yeah,
Says,
like
how
for
long
example,
does it take to edit the pictures that you take?
yeah, editing processes can be short and long. I mean, it depends on how much work that you actually shot. Editing processes are critical, and you really need to have a time set aside and a period after you shoot to sit and just work with the images and edit through them and mark them up. And I can't tell you how important it is to really schedule time for editing and for reviewing the work. And oftentimes it's good to review the work, very soon after you shoot, and then review it again within a day or two to go back and make a second edit. One of the things that I did learn, from even way back in the days of my early training, I studied at Indiana University. I got to go to spend a summer in California, and I met Ansel Adams there and did his workshop. You create, you shoot, and you stay in that mode. And then the editing part, you separate, and you do that as a separate time. Trying to shoot and then edit and shoot and edit on the fly is a bad idea. You waste a lot of energy missing shots primarily. So the main issue there is that you're not focused on the flow of what you're looking at and what you're shooting and what you're trying to capture. It's okay, of course, to review images quickly and see where you are, but you don't want to sit and start to edit through the work and actually remove images and add and think about what you missed or what you might not have gotten. You really want to stay in the mode of shooting and creating, and then do the editing part as a separate part. It really is engaging two parts of your brain. So in the angles here that I did, some of the angles I purposely did low because then it would show more of the actual elements of what the piece was about, and others I got up higher, like for example this image. And then in some of the images, I even went upstairs and got into a much more distant view, which was important in order to really show what the scale of the. Now my screen is locking up. Hold on. There we go. What the scale was about. The one I wanted to really show you was at the end. So I really love this image because it shows the audience in the foreground in this beautiful arc of silhouettes, and then you've got this very nice angle looking down into the structure of the stage, where it's now elliptical, and yet you're still seeing a nice eye straight on gaze with the artist. And there's not a lot of other distracting elements or lighting except for the little screens in the background. And then here, another nice angle where I'm looking straight into the actual action of the event with the hair. And here above, looking down because you really needed to see the shape and the design of the stage and what she was involved in. And then lastly, going upstairs and looking down on this because you can see why she created the circular dress, in part because she knew she was going to be in the Guggenheim, which is, circular.
Right. It really lends to that angle.
Yeah, I mean, this was a really, I think, very simple approach to a new piece that she designed. I don't know much more about it other than that we called it the blue dress. And, but this was more of her really kind of stepping up and saying, this is who I am, and I'm here, and enjoy.
Right. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. This was wonderful. Thank you for sharing your experience, all the photographs that you've taken, and specifically also with performance artists, such as Marina, which is always so fascinating to see. I do want to thank all of you this evening for joining us once again in our virtual programming, which is just wonderful to see so many faces and names in this space. And also, I know, Stephen, you have a couple of your students who are with you right now at Queens College. So a special shout out to them. If you could see them. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in our conversation. And we hope that, someday, I think we're getting there. In the future, we will be, all of us will be in person once again. Of course, hopefully also with a virtual side, so a hybrid program, because I think this tends to work so well. But again, thank you, Stephen, for sharing your time, your expertise with us all. And again, thank you to everyone. I put in the chat, I put our information. You can email us at gtmuseum@qc.cuny.edu with any questions, comments. You can please visit our website, www.gtmuseum.org. For any Queens College students, faculty, and staff, I invite you all to come and visit us at the museum and look at our wonderful exhibitions that we have going on right now. And please stay tuned for more events. We have another event next week. It's going to be a panel conversation on October 20th, 7 p.m. You will be getting emails about that. If you want to join us again, it'll be a virtual event. So you'll be able to join us in this space once again. Well, I think
and don't forget to plug your upcoming artist talk and show that's connected to that.
Yes, yeah, we have a couple of other artist talks. So yes, you will be, again, follow us on Instagram if you do have an Instagram account, or Facebook. That's where we'll also post all of our information. But yes, thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Stephen, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. There's a lot of messages you can read in the chat.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, they're fantastic. I should say a special shout out to John Mano, who, taught me everything.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great evening. Be safe, and we'll see you all soon.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.